to the dailies. Tunaanza na gazeti la Taifa Leo, linazungumzia masuala ya kotini. Gachagua, Roho mkononi, ni habari ambayo tutakuwa tukiipa kipaumbele sio tu leo bali wiki nzima. Mahakama kuamua leo iwapo aliyekuwa naibu wa rais aling'olewa mamlakani kwa njia halali au la. Siku ya kiyama ndio leo. Rigathi amewahimiza wafuasi wake wadumishe amani hata kama uamuzi wa koti hautawaridhisha, akisema iwapo utakuwa kinyume na matarajio yake, basi ataelekea katika mahakama ya rufaa, ile appeals court. Hata hivyo, alisifu mahakama akisema anaamini itamtendea haki. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa pili wa gazeti hili la Taifa Leo. Ni habari ambayo wengi wamengojea kwa muda sasa. Kumbuka aling'amuliwa kutoka mamlakani Oktoba mwaka 2024. Kwingineko, hapa chini, Kipkemboi na Kemuma wazoa vitita kwa marathon, wanyakuwa shilingi milioni 3.5 kila mmoja kwa kushinda Nairobi City Marathon. Ilitendeka hapo jana. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 18. Wataalamu watabiri Ebola hatari zaidi. Shirika la CDC lasema mlipuko mpya wa Ebola huenda ukashinda uliotokea mwaka 2014 Afrika Magharibi. Masuala ya Ebola hapa Kenya yamepewa uzito kweli, especially after the establishment of that quarantine facility in Laikipia. Masuala ya siasa pia ni peni urais mwaka 2027 ni komboe Kenya, asema Kalonzo, ni kinara wa Wiper ambaye amezindua jukwaa la kampeni zake akiahidi kumaliza utawala mbaya na ufisadi. Habari kamili kwenye ukurasa wa 3. Kalonzo asema tukutane debeni. Kiongozi huyu anayepanga kuwania urais kwa mara ya pili maishani mwake aliahidi kubadilisha maisha ya raia akichaguliwa mwaka ujao. Pale nyuma, kombe la dunia mwaka 2026 zimebaki siku 3 tu. Makala 23 ya kidumbwe cha kombe la dunia mwaka huu yataandaliwa kuanzia Juni 11 hadi Julai 19. Ni miamba wafunga kazi kirafiki kwa kishindo. Brazil walihemesha Misri kwa mabao 2-1. Ujerumani ikapepeta Amerika 2-1, naye Ureno pia ikalemea Chile mabao 2-1 mnamo Jumamosi. Ni mechi za kirafiki zilizochezwa weekend hii ambayo imepita. Gazeti la Taifa Leo. Gachagua, Roho mkononi. It's the same story on the front page of the Daily Nation is found there. It's not the main headline, but D-Day for Gachagua in bid to overturn impeachment is a main story on the front page of the Daily Nation. The High Court will today rule whether Parliament's 2024 impeachment of then Deputy President Rigathi Gachagua, which led to his removal from office and subsequent barred from holding public office, was conducted in a lawful manner. This is a big discussion today on what whichever judgment will mean for this country. If the court rules that he was impeached illegally, what does it mean? If it rules that the impeachment was indeed legal, then what does it mean, even politically, and to Rigathi Gachagua himself? That's a story on the top strip of the front page of the Daily Nation. But the main story is on the schools' unrest. Security chiefs meet over schools' crisis. A wave of unrest that has forced the closure of most schools nationwide, with principals cautious to prevent the tragedy that befell Utumishi School in Gilgil, where 16 girls died in a dormitory fire, believed to have been ignited by some unruly students, will feature during a meeting of security chiefs today. Members of the National Security Advisory Committee, NSAC, which advises the National Security Council, a top organ chaired by the President, convene on the back of rising tension in schools. One of the outcome of this meeting, probably and as expected, is a public discourse on whether or not schools should actually proceed on early midterm break, because the midterm break for second term was scheduled for, I think, the 3rd or 4th week of this month. But already quite a number of schools have shut down. If we may look in the inside pages just for context of what is happening so far. There's a lot of coverage around the school's unrest. One of the students who died at the Utumishi Senior School was buried at the weekend. Some more parents will have to wait longer to bury their children. They were told to wait until after a requiem mass to be conducted on June 17th. The one who was buried in Kwale was from the Muslim faith and had to be buried immediately. Yes, national security bosses to discuss unrest in schools, and they've shared the number of schools that have been closed so far. In Nairobi, 5 of them have closed down. In Nakuru, 14 schools. I think that's the most affected county, Nakuru, where Utumishi Girls is located. And some of the schools in Nakuru include Elbagon Senior School, St. Joseph Seminary, Marymount Girls, Naivasha Girls, Moi Forces Academy Lanet, Nakuru Girls, Njoro Boys, Naivasha Girls, Koelel, Jomo Kenyatta Boys, Jomo Kenyatta Girls. 14 schools in Nakuru. In Kericho, there are 3. In Bomet, 3. Narok, 1. Taita Taveta, 7. Kisii, 7. Nyamira, 5. Kisumu, 2. Homa Bay, 3 schools. Agorosare, Orero, Gendia. Agorosare was actually closed on Saturday. Siaya, 1. Moranga, 7. Kiambu, where we have Alliance High School, Alliance Girls is still in session. I think it's Alliance Boys High School that was closed. Loreto Girls, Limuru. Mangu High School, Thika High School. You can imagine, these are some of the top schools, and they've already shut down because of the unrest. The PS for Education, Bwana Bitok, had said they would not be considering sending students on early midterm break. But that could change after this NSAC meeting today, because many people are advising that this should happen because quite a number of schools have already closed, and other students in other schools that are yet to shut down are insisting that they need to go home. Quite a number of schools here, more than 40 schools have shut down. All right, so that is a big story there. Another highlight, and this one I think it's only the Daily Nation that has, the Daily Nation has shared an aerial view of the US-backed Ebola unit at Laikipia Air Base, where it is being built. So I don't know if they used a drone or how they got this. Oh, they say it's a satellite image. Excuse me. A satellite image shows erected tents and vehicles at a new field hospital at Laikipia Air Base in Laikipia County. This was 4 days ago, June 4th. A Kenyan court has already suspended the U.S. plans to open an Ebola isolation facility for American citizens at the military camp, with a proposal to send patients to the country which has no known cases of the virus, provoking backlash. This photo is courtesy of Reuters, which is an international news agency. So construction of the facility appears to already be underway, despite a court order. Muspende. On page 10, there's a very interesting story. Court clips Duale's wings in MKU degree course row. Health Cabinet Secretary Aden Duale has been blocked from scrapping Mount Kenya University's Bachelor of Science in Oral Health program, with the High Court ruling the minister lacked the legal authority. Alikuwa tu inaitwa nini? Sitaki kuitumia hiyo nini. Anaweza kasirika sana. The High Court ruled the minister lacked the legal authority to interfere with accredited university courses. It is only the Commission of University Education in Kenya that has the authority to scrap any accredited courses. So, mtu akifanya ile kitu wenye hana authority ya kufanya na si kazi yake, wewe inaitwa ni nini? Hiyo jina inaitwa? Unasema kuna nini? Well, I'll leave that to you. NTSA warns court order doesn't stop instant fines. The National Transport and Safety Authority has clarified that the instant traffic fine system remains in force, explaining a recent court order only suspended the public-private partnership, PPP component of the program, particularly the planned expansion of enforcement cameras. So NTSA insists the instant fines do stand. Wale ambao wanatumia pikipiki, wale wanaitwa pillion passengers, on a motorcycle. If at all you're found not to have protective gear, including a helmet, you'll be subject to a fine. NTSA insists. So chunga sana. Let's take a look at the inside pages of this paper. Of course, at NTSA, stories on page 2. A lot of coverage of the school's unrest on pages 3 and 4. Nyakango, ule controller of budget, is set to receive 14.6 million shillings in golden parachute when her 8-year non-renewable term comes to an end in January next year. Just like that, 14M gratuity. Political stories. I will deliver Kenyans from hardship, Kalonzo says as he launches his presidential campaign platform officially. Yeah, he has received a lot of criticism, watu wakisema ati anakaa tu hapo angoje kukampeniwa. Sasa officially launch your campaign. On the opposite page, moment of truth for Gachagua. What would it mean if Gachagua wins this impeachment case? What would be the result politically? Initially, I'd said, well, he's ready to support anyone else. After all, that was based on his impeachment case, or his impeachment. Now, if he's told he's no longer, that impeachment was illegal, what happens? Will he run for president? And what happens to the opposition? Meanwhile, if he loses a case, what happens? Will he back other candidates like Kalonzo or Matiang'i? Or Eugene Wamalwa, if at all? Big questions there in politics. All right, back page. Nairobi City Marathon, men's and women's champions, and 3.5 million shillings in prize money. Race winners show where there is a will, there's a way. And the winners are there. Enoch Kipkemboi crossing the finishing line. And Joy Kemuma. Yeah, that's a person who won. So in the men's race, Enoch Kipkemboi won it in 2 hours, 9 minutes, 33 seconds. In the women's race, Joy Kemuma won it with 2 hours, 27 minutes, 43 seconds. And that's the Daily Nation today. Tukiendelea mbele, the Standards. You'll realize that the Standard has been having very different kind of headlines for the past 1.5 weeks or so. So today they talk about people who have vanished without a trace. The headline is "Without a Trace." For years, Kenyan families have lived in torment, searching for loved ones who vanished without a trace, from security analyst Mwenda Mbijiwe, whose photo features prominently on the front page at the center. The missing have left behind devastated families, unanswered questions, and haunting mysteries. As courts, human rights groups, and relatives demand answers, the cases expose glaring failures in investigations and fuel concerns of enforced disappearances. Criminal networks and impunity, with dozens still unaccounted for and many files gathering dust. Missing persons crisis remains one of Kenya's most painful unresolved tragedies. Stories on page 4. We have Rose Wamoyo, who disappeared on 30th of April this year. Bogonko Bosire was a journalist. We were in college together. He vanished from the streets of Nairobi on September 13th, in September of 2013. Dafton Mutunga Muitiki vanished in 2010. Irene Gachagua vanished in the United States in 2022. And Mwenda Mbijiwe disappeared on June 12, 2021, meaning that now it is 5 years since he disappeared while traveling from Nairobi to Meru. Very interesting that security forces in Kenya can track you and trace you whenever they need you. And they will get you. You can never run from them. They will definitely get you. But they're very slow when it comes to missing persons. What happens? Yeah, that someone can just vanish from the face of the earth, just like that, without the knowledge of security apparatus in this country. Yet, when they're looking for you, they can fish you out. They can smoke you out of any hole that you may be in, anywhere in Kenya. Well, maswali tu, sisi letu jicho. On page 2, senators are seeking easy, faster reversal for money sent to wrong recipient. Currently, it takes about 72 hours, if at all, once you report a claim, especially to Safaricom. But now they want it to be much faster. Pesa yako ikienda to the wrong number, you should get it back as quickly as possible. Matters Health on page 3, cancer survivors inspire hope amid emotional and financial toil. That's a special story by their health reporter on page 3 of the Standard. Just looking at tears of triumph, all eyes on court as Gachagua and Kindiki face final verdict. Yeah, it's interesting that the current deputy president, I don't know what would happen if at all it is declared that Rigathi Gachagua was impeached illegally. Then what happens to the current deputy president? Does it mean that he was appointed illegally? This is the first time this will be happening either way. So tugoje tuone vile kutaenda hata sisi. DCI haunts Analo over fatal South Sea building collapse. This is a city in charge of planning, Patrick Analo, who was last week arrested after money was found in his house, over 65 million shillings, according to reports. He was released on bail, but now he's at the risk of another arrest. This one linked to the South Sea building collapsed, where 2 people died. That could be a case of manslaughter. Sema siku ya nyani kufa, miti yote uteleza. And meanwhile, same story, stakeholders call for city urban planning dockets overhaul. And that's a story on page 9. Yes. All right, on the back page of this paper, matters World Cup given prominence. No, rather international football, because they're featuring Harambee Stars singing redemption song as they defeat Lesotho 4-0. Sasa timu zingine hata tunafaa anyway. Harambee Stars pale walichapa Lesotho mabao 4 kwa bila. So Kenya finally found the response they needed as Harambee Stars brushed aside Lesotho 4-0 yesterday in South Africa, producing a much sharper display after the disappointing 1-1 draw between the two sides 3 days ago. And poor Shujaa miss out on promotion slot. This is the Kenya Rugby Sevens team. Kenya, for the 3rd straight season, will be playing in the 2nd tier of the World Rugby Sevens series after failing to qualify for the 2026-2027 HSBC Sevens Division 1 in the final leg of the Sevens World Championship that ended in France yesterday. They did well, but the problem is the US beat Fiji. Yeah, they were really hoping that Fiji would emerge victorious, but the US beat Fiji. Ikamaanisha, tuko kule chini. But FIFA World Cup features a lot on the sports pages of this paper. Pages 30, 31, all about World Cup and beautiful images that we expect in the US, Mexico and Canada. The beautiful women who show up for football. If you look at page 31 of this paper, inakaa mzuri sana bwana. Ukiangalia hapo, very nice photos of the kind of fans that you expect in the stadiums in the US, Mexico and Canada. That's a standard today. Wanaita the bold paper. All right, and hii gadget inataka kunionyesha maneno. Anyway, let's just go physical. Sababu tumejiandaa. The Star newspaper. Kama kawaida, fresh, independent and different, and we underline different. The first story, the main story on the front page. At last, Turkana oil project gets moving after 14 years of delay. This is a story given prominence on this paper today. Ile spread ya page 4 and 5. CS Wandai, that's a CS for Energy, Opiyo Wandai, says Turkana oil will start flowing before end of year. He says the operating expenditure alone represents a huge opportunity for Kenyan businesses. These are resources that will circulate through the economy and create jobs for our people. So this is an interview that this paper had with the Energy CS, Opiyo Wandai. At a glance, this oil was discovered in March of 2012. This is 14 years later. Years of commercial development. It's taken 14 years to commercially develop this. They say that the oil in place is about 2.85 billion barrels. Recoverable results about 429 million barrels. This project is expected to take about 25 years, and the first oil target is end of this year. Peak production target 50,000 barrels a day. And it takes about $5 billion US. It's about 646 billion Kenya shillings. That's the capital investments. Meanwhile, operating expenditure 1.03 trillion. Wow, 1.03 trillion shillings. Supposed to create about 3,000 jobs. And it comes there with an expert comment by Martin Chomba, who's Petroleum Outlets Association of Kenya chairperson. Kwa hivyo kuna oil huku. And then a very sad story there on the front page of the Star. acid, fire and death. Family of 4 perishes. This is a man, wife and their 2 sons. And it's another case of gender-based violence where disagreement between the man and his wife ended in one of them pouring acid on the other and burning their house, including the children inside. They did not die on the spot. All of them were taken to hospital. 3 of them died at the Thika hospital, and another one was taken to the smallest son, who was taken to Kenyatta hospital, died 4 days later. So all of them perished in that, lost their lives from that incident. Kamau Kamoko, his wife Phyllis Wamboya, and the 2 young sons, Thailand, who was 6, and Terence, who was 4. That story is on page 23, a very sad story. And this case has continued being reported every week, if not daily, here in Kenya. Very sad indeed. About that marathon, Kipkemboya and Kemuma emerge winners. We've talked about it. Kalonzo and his plans for the presidential campaign, that's on page 12. Pale Juu, I'm ready for any outcome in my impeachment case, says former DP Gachagua. And of course, we'll be looking to bring you all the details from court today as it happens. Backpage Matters Football, handsome reward to Gor Mahia as they visit President Ruto, or rather they were hosted by President Ruto at State House. The president, he backed their Champions League dream with 10 million shillings bonus. Wow. And you have a picture of the president there sharing a moment with some of the players at State House, Nairobi this past weekend. And that's the Star, fresh, independent and different. You can grab yourself a copy of this paper for only 60 bob. All right, kabla tuende kuangazia magazeti ya nje ya nchi, let's take a look at the People Daily. Matters Politics. And you see that one-term phrase. Now this time this paper has devolved it from the presidency to the counties under the headline, Devolving One Term. So first-time governors in the political fight of their lives ahead of 2027 general election. They've shared pictures of about 8 of them. Are they indicating that these ones could only serve this one term? That these ones are the risk of only being one-term governors? They have Johnson Sakaja of Nairobi, Susan Kihika of Nakuru, Kimani Wamatangi of Kiambu, Cecily Mbarire of Embu, George Natembe of Trans Nzoia, Abdul Swamad Nasir of Mombasa, Gladys Wanga of Homa Bay, and Simba Arati of Kisii County. That story continues on page 4, and it has more governors there who are at a risk of losing their positions. Mounting pressure, they say. First-time governors in the political fight of their lives ahead of 2027 general election. Away from that, other quick highlights. Kalonzo's name dragged into contentious Kitui budget tussle. And Kenya-Somalia border reopening between security risks and economic opportunity. That story is on page 16 of the People Daily. Tuangazie masuala ya biashara sasa, tukimalizia magazeti ya hapa nchini. Business Daily today. Mattress firms leak secret union in price fixing probe. So 5 mattress makers suspected of being involved in cartel activity unknowingly exposed their collusion after jointly seeking a preemptive court injunction to block a planned raid on their premises. Interesting that. And firms risk KRA and bank asset seizure over unremitted pension. On the ticker, Treasury, 10 billion shilling funding cut blights Kenya's oil dream. Kenya military spends 190 billion on weapons as East Africa rearms and state plans sale of e-citizen users' data to businesses. Your data will be sold. All right, those are the local dailies. Let's go regional, and we start off with the East African. Today being a Monday, this is a weekly copy of the East African. And it talks about the East African community being broke ESC in staffing crisis with just $23 in the General Reserve. The Secretariat cannot hire staff for 163 critical jobs, even as retiring employees go empty-handed due to cash crunch. Remember, we've been talking about the East African community and Kenya being the only country that is up to date with its remittances, or rather contribution to the community. Many other countries, including the host country Tanzania, walisema hawana pesa ya kulipa hiyo maneno. The other story given prominence on the front page of this paper is to do with what's happening in South Africa with cases of xenophobia. And we have displaced Africans sheltering in a hall in South Africa, Clermont, and they're asking, whom did they wrong in South Africa? That's the East African. Let's go to Uganda now. The Daily Monitor is asking one question. Where's Janet, the First Lady? Yeah. While the rest of the ministerial nominees presented themselves for vetting, Ms. Museveni, the education minister designate, did not show up for the two-day exercise and may likely miss taking her oath of office today. So the cabinet is being sworn in today, and she's not been seen for a while, unless she is vetted ahead of the swearing in. So May 12th, during the swearing in of the president at Kololo ceremonial grounds, the First Lady did not show up, and President Museveni was accompanied by his daughter, Natasha. Out of the 82 ministers nominated, 80 were approved, with one rejected, while another did not appear, and that's Janet Museveni. Where is Janet? That's a question on the Daily Monitor. On the New Vision, businesswoman kidnapped and killed, matters crime in Kampala. Let's go to Tanzania now. We start off with the Citizen in Tanzania. Trees down, profits up. Data for the Ministry of Natural Resources and Tourism shows that 95% of charcoal in Shinyanga enters the market illegally, bypassing licensing requirements. So matters logging and charcoal burning. Big crisis in Tanzania according to the Citizen. Tukisalia kule Bongo, gazeti la Mwananchi, msimamo wa nchi, na ni ile the visit of their president Samia Suluhu Hassan to Russia. Rais Samia atoa mwelekeo wa Tanzania kimataifa, wachambuzi waunga mkono wakitoa angalizo. Alikuwa ametembelea Rais Vladimir Putin wa Urusi, na ndio habari inayopewa kipaumbele kwenye ukurasa wa mbele wa gazeti hilo la Mwananchi kule Tanzania. So those are the top stories on all the front pages, not just in Kenya but around the region. Let's come back home and take a look at the caricatures. The cartoon on the Daily Nation today